About this. Professor Livingston has a very nice speaking voice. Enjoyed listening to you. I do want y'all to refrain from any outbursts. Professor, will you take any questions from the committee?
Yes.
Chairman Delaney. You don't have to. Professor, or Representative McLeod.
Sorry?
What law school are you a professor at?
I'm not a law, I teach philosophy law, at Emory University.
Thank you so much.
Emory, yes, in Atlanta.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Professor, so you traveled from Atlanta, obviously, from Emory to be with us today.
Well, I just retired. I'm a recovering academic. I live in Pleasantville on the coast there.
Okay, so you're in South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But I understand the earlier part of your testimony, you said you did not read the bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you've not read it.
No, I'm here to talk about the constitutional context of nullification in general.
Okay, we're here to decide whether or not we should pass a bill or not. And it would be good to know if any of your comments related to any of the merits of the bill as to whether or not it would be advisable to pass or not. So would you advise this committee that we should pass a bill that would have us, say, arrest a federal judge for ordering the enforcement of a provision of the Affordable Care Act? Is that what you're advising this committee to do?
No, I'm not sure I would recommend that. I have to look at the bill.
That would be?
I would say that the point I'm trying to make is that in any federal system where you have political societies, there has to be some form of veto by those political societies. Canada, for example, has nullification. A Canadian province can nullify any federal law in the area of civil rights. So if you had, for example, the abortion decision, it's called the notwithstanding clause. In Manitoba, for example, it would say notwithstanding the central government's ordinance, Manitoba opts out. So the abortion law would hold in every province of Manitoba. And so what this recognizes is that not every state beats to the same drum. There are reserved rights that the political society has. So even Canada has some form of nullification. Now, what form of nullification takes, whether you can arrest a federal agent, or whether you have something like the Canadian system, or whether you're interposing were you the one here? Yes, you're the one who gave the argument for interposition, is it? I would say.
Actually, not. I think it was Chairman Delaney.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be a form of a state nullifying or claiming that the thing is unconstitutional. And the method used would be what you were using, what you were talking about. A use of state law versus federal law to jockey the state in position where it can get free what it considers maybe an unconstitutional act. But its motive, it would be in this case, thought that it is unconstitutional and would be asserting its right to do that through its own laws. So we can argue about how you implement this state resistance, but there must be such a thing in any humane, legitimate federal system.
So I want to be clear, and I've enjoyed the philosophical discussion. I've enjoyed it very much. I've enjoyed what you provided to the committee. But I want to make sure that the points that you've made and their applicability to the bill that is before us. And I think that's the important decision. So do you have an opinion as to whether or not we should pass Representative Chumley's bill, H 3101?
Well, I think I'd just better not give an opinion on that.
Okay, thank you.
I need to read it, and I
That would be
need to
good.
think about what this would mean if you try to implement it. Because even though you have a right to do something, you want to be successful. And I'm talking about the constitutional context.
Right.
I'm denying the view of the Constitution that Professor Crawford.
Clearly, we understand that. I think it's important how that applies to this bill, whether or not it's your opinion to pass it or not. And so you don't have an opinion for that? Okay, thank you.
We got lots more questions for you. If you'll take another moment, we'll let you slip out. Chairman Delaney.
Professor Livingston, I enjoyed very much your participation also. And I would ask you this. I know you haven't had a chance to read the Chumley Bill, H3101. But if we adopted this, and if we did go out and arrest a federal judge who would join the state from imposing some type of direct nullification, if a federal judge enjoined the state of South Carolina from doing that, and then we sent out our police force and arrested the federal judge, do you think we would be successful in our doing that?
Nullification is a political act, and politics is a contingent matter. And whether you're going to be successful or not depends on the circumstances. Some things you can push, and some things you can't push. And that is a nice judgment to be made. But let me say this. Let me say that in Chisholm versus Georgia in 1793, the Georgia in effect nullified the Supreme Court decision, and the House of Representatives passed a resolution saying that if any federal agent came into the state of Georgia to enforce that, he would be arrested for treason and hanged without benefit of clergy. That was a resolution of the House. Jefferson wrote Madison about the illegality of the federal government putting a national bank in Virginia. And Jefferson said the cashiers and all the rest of them should be arrested for treason against Virginia. So this opinion has been articulated by thoughtful people in American history. What we're to think about that today in South Carolina is a nice question, and I'm not politically wise enough about the situation here to make a judgment.
Do you think the federal government would stand by and allow South Carolina to arrest a federal judge from enjoining us from...
Well, you've made an argument. You say that the military base right down the street, so to speak, and all of that is true. But let's remember that political authority is based not just on force, but it's based on opinion. And if the central government loses its moral authority, all of its military force is impotent. The Soviet Union had more centralized authority than the United States, but there came a time when it lost its moral authority, and the states began to interpose and nullify, and they nullified, and it went on for some time until finally Lithuania said, I think we disagree with it. And the Soviet Union couldn't do anything about it, not because it didn't have the tanks and the Gulag. They couldn't do it because it didn't have moral authority. The same with the communist government in Poland. So if the United States has, the central government has the moral authority, it can run the troops in. If it doesn't, its hands are tied. And that is a political question, and if it has the moral authority, you'd be foolish to confront it with nothing. But if it doesn't, and that's a nice question, then you can push. If you think you should push, if you think it's unconstitutional, seriously. So I don't know whether the United States has its moral authority or no. I just know that before the election, the approval rating of Congress was 10%.
And what about the president? What was his approval rating?
Higher.
Right. And so...
No, it's a question.
And he's the commander-in-chief, right?
But I just want to say we can't just talk about military bases.
Right.
We have to talk about essence of authority is
Right. And elections have consequences. Is that not right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
but in any event, and also the instances you were talking about in the early days of our country, that was in a time when we used to call ourselves these United States, did we not? And we didn't have the federal military might and power, and we didn't have the government.
That's true.
We had a limited government back then.
That's right.
And each state had their own militias. And matter of fact, people at that time really were loyal to their states first and the compact second, oftentimes, were they not?
We still have a federal system. That hasn't changed. There are still states that constitute the authority. And if the central government loses its moral authority and is suppressing the state,